show us what you're doing, because this is your chance to shine.
Today we have the great honor and privilege, I would say, of having Alec Thomson, founder and CEO of Riskcast, with us, and I'm super excited for this conversation, Alec. I think you guys are doing such fantastic work in the industry, in terms of time carding and beyond, I'll call it. But yeah, I think maybe just to kick things off, I think we've talked a little bit about your background and how you got to founding Riskcast, but if I guess for those that are not in the know, would love to hear kind of how you arrived at solving that challenge in the industry.
Sure. So Alec Thomson, CEO, co-founder of Riskcast, and I think the founder story before me is probably the answer to that question. I'm a civil engineer by degree. Went out, got my civil engineering and architecture degree, went to work as a field engineer with a marine contractor in Virginia, loved it, left there, wound up in equipment rental, which is some fun stuff you and I can talk about. Wound up in equipment rental at Sunbelt Rentals for a number of years, and then found my way back to the same company I started with, and they were now owned by Skanska. So I wound up at Skanska Heavy Civil, and at Skanska Heavy Civil met Reggie Archavla. And Reggie, by then, had moved from civil engineering to computer science and was on the IT side, and was kind of almost a counterpart to me. And a lot of times when we were supporting operations with, what are we trying to do next? Systems rollouts, application support, and it was all really focused around the workers. On site, how can we make this easy to use, whatever we were doing, make it better for the folks in the field. So unbeknownst to me, Reggie had been working on an idea internally and really had the thought of bringing real-time job cost to project teams. So labor, equipment, production tracking, pulling those together. Called me in his office one day and said, "Hey, what do you think?" And he showed me on the computer, what was to become Riskcast. He already had it logoed up and he had some things there on site. And I went, "Oh, that's awesome, man. Way to go." And he goes, no, I want you to do it with me. And I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about? I'll help you anywhere I can." He goes, "No, I'll start a company." And probably not the normal founder journey. So I looked at him. I think it probably took me 2 or 3 months to come back to him and say, "Yeah, let's do this." And I think we're very different. We're yin and yang, which is great for founders, and also interesting, adventurous for both of us. But I was the guy that was like, once I had said yes, then it was like all in, right? Let's just do this. And that's how we went after it. And so that was, maybe 6 years ago now.
No, that's great. It's interesting. We all have our, I wrote my idea on a napkin story, right? And I shared it with my co-founder, which I have a similar story, which I won't bore everybody with. But I guess, as you went from napkin to proof of value and production, tell me a little bit about that journey and how you took it from, that whiteboard, that sheet of paper, that back of the napkin, and went from there to actually getting a product in market and, putting it in the hands of the folks in the field.
So, again, probably not the typical SaaS startup. We had product before we had napkin. So we had product right away. And which, for the folks that aren't familiar with the journey, which means you cannot raise money now until you have customers, basically, right? The long and short of that is, you have a product, that's awesome. How many people are using it? And what that meant to Reggie and I, where we were looking for first customer and, running out of money probably pretty quickly doing it. We were both working remotely in our apartments, getting together regularly, and through fortunate of friends of ours at Procore, actually, were introduced. Josh Newland introduced us to Mike Rascona. Mike Rascona and Ian Campy from EJ Electric were looking for something. And they had been bugging Procore for this thing that they couldn't get, which is really production tracking. Want to track working place, actuals versus planned, and how would they do it? So they fed them us, right? I guess, that was like, daggone, we're tired of this request, and we know somebody, talk to them. And why they are very important is they were really our product leads for 6 months. So Reggie and I would sit weekly, bi-weekly in an office with them on a whiteboard, sketching out how the user interface was supposed to work before they were even going to be willing to try it. And we had no other customers, and we were trying to figure this thing out. And so we worked together almost 6 months, really, between those whiteboarding sessions and some early testers before they were even willing to really get deep into the tool. They did become our first customer. They're still a customer today, which is awesome. They're still very much a partner in how we build product. But yeah, that was, the path to market fit. They were an amazing first customer because they were using everything instantly. They wanted to be enterprise instantly. They wanted to push the envelope instantly. And then we wound up at our first ground break with a customer, and we were ready with some ideas about that. I can talk more about that, maybe later, but that's how we wound up with customer 2 and customer 3. And so it was not a planned journey. We had no idea, how are we going to find people? How are we going to fit the market? How are we going to market? How are we going to sell? We had no plan whatsoever. To guys that were, I guess, over 40 or more ignorant than when you're in your 20s. So we had no idea what we were doing other than we knew it was a problem. We were certain it was a problem.
Yeah, and I guess maybe that's where I want to start here is talk about the problem a little bit. Some of those challenges that you see your customers facing, and why they weren't getting solved before, and how you're coming at it maybe from a different angle or from a different way to solve them. I guess maybe talk a little bit about that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it sounds simple to think it's a time card. So first, our thesis was it's job cost. And so it's real-time job cost, which means labor, equipment, and installed quantities combined. So now we had to capture all three of those things, and there really wasn't a good capture mechanism, which is why we built what is, in essence, a time card portal to get that. So why is that challenging? As soon as you do a time card, first challenge is now everybody wants you to connect to payroll. Payroll is often dicey, right? Payroll is a very nuanced thing by every region, multi-union, prevailing wage, geographies have different rules. There's just layers and layers of complexity. And if you missed one piece of complexity, you were done. They would just go back to Excel and paper. So right. The portal had to be able to configure in a way that kind of pane of glass where you enter everything had to configure in a way that worked for every variation that any of our customers were going to throw at us, which meant 2, maybe 3 years of doing nothing but making that pane of glass really awesome and configurable. Continuing with our early customers, gaining new ones, and I think that doesn't sound hard. It's time card. How many hours? How many? Who was on site? It gets really complex fast. Reggie had the experience on the back end to know that and built the architecture really early to support what would become all these variations. So while our tool was this big at the beginning, the architecture was this big. And that architecture has helped us over the years evolve differently than if we'd started as an app.
Well, and I think, at least in our experience, that comes from industry insight and experience. And clearly you guys had, industry insight and experience to know enough that, these simple problems are way more complex to actually solve and execute. But I guess, with that, it seems to be sort of this high wire act where, you play such a critical role, both operationally, in the business, because people are getting paid from the time cards that are getting submitted. So, that's a real immediate operational impact. But I guess kind of pan out for me a little bit, and I guess what are some of the other, strategic things that you guys were thinking about with, the development of this solution, both in terms of, you mentioned before, getting it, accurate costing and job costing, and maybe doing, some analysis there and capturing that data. I guess as you guys embarked on this journey, what was, how did you think about that and the value of that you could deliver there as well?
I feel like today, 5 years plus in, we're starting to see the industry itself talk about job cost and project controls more than it did 5 years ago. And I'm sure there's a lot of influences to that. The industry itself is evolving. The other large players that are working in space are evolving, and so they're marketing differently than they used to. McKinsey might be saying something different than they used to. So the market's kind of evolving to the job cost message. We learned early we couldn't talk about it, or it didn't help us to talk about it. What was job cost? What is job cost? Yeah. So we talked about the thing people understood, which is a time card. And it's a double-edged sword because then we're in a bucket of time cards. So, as a founder trying to navigate this messaging journey of what are we, today our message, we have two still, but they're very, very basic. And those messages have been evolving over the years. They'll continue to evolve, partially again based on what the market's ready to hear. But job cost, the criticality of job cost, when you talk about a shortened labor market and everybody talks about how are we going to solve that problem and robots come, instantly on screen, great. But really on job sites today. But seriously, what are we doing now? Those are going to work and they'll have application. But really, what are we doing to put work in place right now? Yeah. The productivity rate of work is what really matters. And we've heard a lot of people, I've read the reports, I guess, that say, the productivity of the U.S. has dropped and it's awful. I don't think that's true. I think it depends on what numbers you're reading. But we get into productivity rate, and that's where if you're a trade contractor or self-performed GC, that's your money, right? That's where your real risk is, and that's where the name of the company came from. Labor and equipment and your productivity rate, that's your risk on site. Safety's involved in that, quality's involved in that rework. But let's face it, when you bid the job and 70% of it are your people and it's your equipment, that's your risk. You can buy the materials day one. You can subcontract day one. But your people are going to be working for a year on that building, and that's everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hear you. It's sort of, the industry is still trying to solve the operational challenge so that they can get the data to think about it strategically.
Yeah.
It's sort of, it's chicken and egg a little bit, where everybody has talked about, well, cost per hour, owning and operating costs on equipment, or what's your what's your productivity metrics and so on and so forth. But there really haven't been the solutions in place to even capture that information, to start to even measure it, let alone analyze it or make any changes as a result. And so, I know we've faced that at Activate where, obviously for so many years we talked about, what's your, cost per operating hour for this asset, and, talk about, the equipment life cycle and equipment management maturity and all these kinds of things. And, people would come back to us and say, oh, well, you know what? We just need an inspection done, or we just need to get our maintenance done on time.
That's right. Yeah.
We're managing this stuff on a magnet board or a whiteboard or Post-it notes. We've got this operational challenge. I guess that said, and we've faced it too. What are you guys seeing in terms of, overcoming some of the usage and adoption, pushback? I know, we face it. I don't know if you guys face it at all, but, did you face that in the beginning, of the journey, and then how did you overcome, some of the pushback on, hey, I'm not going to use an app to do this, or, I don't want Big Brother looking over my shoulder?
Wow, there's now there's 4 or 5. I was going to say there's 2 or 3 things in there I want to play on. Now there's 4 or 5. The Big Brother over my shoulder one. An anecdote from, again, an early customer. The way they gave value to their foremen that were now filling out these time cards, they say, record all your information. Show us what you're doing, because this is your chance to shine. Yeah. And if there's a problem and you bring it up here and it festers for a week because your boss didn't do anything about it, I see that you brought it up. And they brought value hey, there's real value for you as a foreman to get this information in, that you win in the long run. Yeah. And that was wow, good for you. Wish I had thought of that. Can you sell us some more customers? That's amazing. So that's an anecdote that was really great. I'm pretty bullish on the folks that talk about, tech was hard to adopt. You guys have a different problem than we have. So respectfully, like on our side of it, you've got a couple nuances in yours that complicate the matter, including people that get involved with hardware and other devices. We have it so much easier and it's pure software play. But I said this again to somebody yesterday when you're, talked about tech being, construction's laggards, they don't want to adopt tech, people resist. And I said, hey, time out. When you're going out on a construction site and I'm going to, just hired you and you're going to install 50, junction boxes and you all got to screw into stud work. And you walk by and there's a screwdriver and there's a screw gun. Which one are you picking up? Right? I didn't have to teach you that. You knew there was value in that screw gun. And so you picked it up. No different than tech in the field to me, pure software play. If it's valuable to the end user, they will use it, period. And that's how we look at adoption across our platform as well. We chose a model that was an all-in number, and that purposely was so that adoption rates could rise for our customers. Because if they'll get ROI, they'll keep coming back. We're true SaaS. If they don't get ROI and they leave, that's on us. That's shame on us. And so it's at least a couple of stories to unpack. One of the asset problems, I'm going to tell you an equipment problem that I saw back in the day, and I bet it still happens. I was renting equipment, Sunbelt Rentals, right? Great company to work for. They were a lot of fun. I don't know if I should say names, but anyway, they were awesome. I had a good time. I went to work for them like right as they were coming into the States. They were just running around, and it was wide open, a lot of fun. And we had a lot of discretion about our rates. And I remember working with a contractor in Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Virginia, that had their own equipment internally, and they had rental rates. So you talked about the asset, the life cycle, the value of this equipment. Do we know, right? Well, their backhoe cost on their rental sheet $275 a day. I charge $250. Done. And the guy on site's renting from me, not his own equipment. Their own equipment's sitting in the warehouse because he's getting paid on his project bonus based on his dollars. Yeah. So as he's incentivized to save money, I can save him money. I'm incentivized to make money. He rents my equipment, I'm making money. That asset that they owned sat in the warehouse and depreciated with no value. Those decisions were disconnected, right? And I'm sure you still fight that today, and that's 25 years ago.
Yeah, and I think to that point, for us, it's all about visibility and creating transparency, especially between the production side of the house and the equipment management side of the house. I mean, there's been, as I think that's the age-old problem, right? I mean, there's the wall up between production and equipment management, and that shall never be broken, right? Because there's things that we're hiding on both sides. But it's
that's our industry. I love that. I'm hiding my thing, they're hiding their thing, and suddenly we're making really bad decisions, but it's cool because I'm hiding my stuff.
But I look good on my scorecard and you look good on your scorecard, and we'll keep it that way, right? We'll have this unspoken agreement. But what I think as soon as we show, I think you made that point before, saying, look, when we provide value to the individual, whether that's the operator or a technician or a laborer or whoever it is in the chain, we provide value to that individual person, right? That rolls up to some corporate value. Then, we win, right? Right. All around we win. And, it's amazingly simple in some cases, right? To do that. But you've really got to make that simple for the individual first, right? And then you can provide the corporate value.
I think something in there, Brian, and I'm sure you do this. You've got to add value somewhere in the chain, the end user of whatever your tech is, and then you cannot cause pain anywhere else in the chain. You don't have to add value to every audience, but you cannot cause pain to an audience, because that's back to, well, I got what I wanted, tough crap on you, and right. So tech, decidedly has an audience when it's selling And we had this discussion at a networking event the other night. I'm like, guys, we all have different audiences, but if we don't sell smartly collectively, everybody keeps losing, right? And so it can't be good for me and bad for you and the company win, right? It has to be good for me and at least neutral. And I'm sure that's how you guys have it, right? Great for the end user for your product, and everyone else is neutral or win.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so, I think to your example before, and it's a project that, we're both on, the Hampton Roads Connector Partner project. And, we started out kind of slowly, one process at a time, and today it's, every operator is doing a walk around inspection on the equipment. So I think last month we had, 11,000 operator walk around inspections.
That's
awesome.
That's
good. But that's good for everybody. And so what they're finding is it was good for the operator because, to your point, it protects them from, hey, this equipment's safe to operate. I checked it before I started it. I'm reporting equipment issues when they happen, right? So from an operator perspective, you're hitting your scorecard, and then from a, the job site super, immediately if there's an issue and you can address it. You can get a backup unit. And then the equipment management side, you've got real-time visibility to what's happening in production, so you're not caught on your heels. So everybody kind of wins in that scenario. But I think in your world too, it's it's creating that win-win-win all around the table.
And that was Reggie's mindset when he looked at this. He thought, and we were both passionate about the end user. The mindset was, if we can get it quality data right there at the original source, then everybody else can get the data. We can make the data do dances for everybody else. We can make it stand on its head for the CEO if it needs to, if we captured it right at the very beginning. And if that person's experience was good, it didn't take them out of context of building work, putting work in place, then that was everything. And the danger was, or the challenge was, as a startup, you got to pack a long lunch, or a big lunch, because it's going to be a long lead cycle, right? If you're betting on the end user's experience versus I can show the CFO, here's pure savings, buy my software.
Right.
That's the software we were frustrated buying when we were in a corporate office, right? Here's my software, save money. In the field, tough luck.
Right.
We wanted to flip that on its head, but you better pack a big lunch because it's going to take a while to win some converts. And it did. But I'm happier we did it that way. I know Reggie's happier we did it that way. It's been a fun experience now. There's moments in life when it wasn't. You mentioned HRCP. I want to say, I met a guy this past week who was originally part of the team. It's hysterical. He's another co-founder now. I'll introduce you offline. But Victor Zhang, Trestle, and he was at Dragados when that job was getting started up. And I'm like, oh my God, that job was they wrote a check to the two of us when we were just starting out, right? And it really helped us get up and running. And they were willing to take a chance on us. And it was funny. We knew all the same folks. He was involved when it was getting going. So it's a small world. I'll introduce you to Victor. He's a great guy.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about it is something you said kind of rang a bell with me, which is one of our customers said one time, Activate works from the job site back as opposed to the office out.
Yep.
And to me, it was the ultimate compliment because obviously, as you described, how difficult it is of a journey to do it that way, but it's the right way to build the house, right? You want to build the foundation first, and then you can put in the pretty windows and the nice shutters and paint it a nice color. But it's real, and it's funny because that's what we're doing now, right? We're going back and painting the house and making it pretty. But we had to start from the job site first. You have to understand the workflows that happen in the field, on the job site, with the mobile workforce, and then you can build back into the office.
What can I ask? How many years have you guys been going?
Long time. So we started the seed of the idea with Activate, back in 2012 under a consulting business that I had. And we started to tinker around with some products, and then we launched a product and rolled it out really probably in the 2016 time frame, and then did some proof of value, made some advances, But I'd say we kind of got into full swing in maybe more like 2018 timeframe. But we spent a long time researching and studying and, tinkering, I'll call it.
So that wasn't the same as us. You guys did, that was smart. Um, when you said, that started the foundation and now you're just getting to make the pretty windows, it's interesting. You're about the same number of years in that we are, kind of call it live product. And we're just getting to the Windows 2 now, right? So we're 5 years in, 6 years in, we're starting to get to the cool stuff that we always wanted to get to.
Yeah.
We're now starting to get to it. And it's really exciting. And what was really fun was to watch Reggie see, like, suddenly the thing he really saw was starting to take shape.
Yep.
But it's interesting. It was 5 or 6 years in for us too. So I'm curious, as you talk to more founders, and not everybody does it the way you did it, the way we've done it. But more that are in this pattern of what we've done. I'll be curious if it's the same experience. It's taken 4 or 5 years, 5 or 6 years, to be able to then start to put up the pretty windows and the wallpaper or whatever else.
Yeah, and I know what that means to us, but I'm really curious, kind of when you think about the wallpaper and the pretty windows on the house, like what are some of those things for you guys that you feel like, now we built the foundation, so we get to do this cool stuff. What's the cool stuff?
So the cool stuff when we launched, the vision was real-time job cost. And we're releasing next week the job cost upgrades. It's the first time we've touched the job cost tool since year one, right? That in itself. Since year one, since starting out, it's really the first time we've really touched that part of the tool again. That job cost tool now brings what we would consider full job cost functionality, cost to complete, forecasting, really cool stuff.
Yep.
That was like what Reggie wanted to get to. So here we are just getting that, which is really cool. Now we have people on our team and customers that, like, the vision's further, right? Now that we've climbed to a little plateau, we're looking to the next things. Now there's some really cool stuff we're going to be able to do. And we haven't even begun to talk about whether we use AI. I mean, I do quotes because everybody's version of AI is a different version. We'll use it internally to do stuff. That's cool. But like overlaying in the system, and people are just starting to get enough data in their data house to figure out what to do with it, much less train it and get value out of it. So there's so many cool things we're about to do, but the job cost piece, man, that felt really good to get to and upgrade. And I almost count it as a victory for Reggie, right? We're like, there, dude, we got it, man. We got enough going on. We can get to that thing and build in what is super valuable to self-performs. And we'll be able to help small mom and pops, mid-sized businesses, regional contractors evolve their job cost knowledge and understanding of how to do it.
And that was the question I was going to follow with, and you're starting to hit on it, which is, who is that audience, right? That is interested in the real-time job costs, and then how do you deploy that, and how do you make that actionable for folks? Like what is the game plan for you guys to do that? I mean, and who specifically are you targeting with that information, and how do you think they're going to use it?
So like HRCP is a great example. They were job cost day one, right? That's heavy civil contractor. Heavy civil contractors pay very close attention to job cost. For whatever reason, I couldn't begin to tell you. Someone studied them 20, 50 years ago, and we'll find out. But they are very project controls centric. A self-performed contractor, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, you name it, is no different. They're doing the exact same stuff, self-perform wise, so it should benefit them to see the same things. But for whatever reason, that was not the muscle memory those groups were building typically. We found some, certainly, but not mass market. What we're able to do now, because we've built it with these heavy civils and it was our mindset of how to do it, we can now commercialize it. We can make it, so I'm not the smart end of the stick. And what I mean by that was, I graduated as a civil engineer, and we take survey class. And we did surveys around the buildings and everything else, and old wire tape, because I'm not young. But out in the field, you have a total station and you have a stick. And if you've ever driven down a highway watching guys survey, there's a dude on a stick and there's another dude looking through an instrument. Guy through the instrument's the smart guy on the stick's not the smart guy. I'm the guy on the stick. So as we were like looking at what to do, Reggie knew like what this thing would do. And now we're able to say, well, make it work for me.
Yeah.
Make it so accessible that when I look at job cost, I know what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can make it so I know what I'm looking at, then when we sell it to our customers, I even hate that sell word. When our customers take advantage of the tool, because that really is it. If it's valuable, get it. If it's not, forget it.
Yep.
But when our customers take advantage of that tool now, they can look at job cost and take a person that's never thought about actuals versus planned, production rate, forecasted to complete. And they can see easy to read formula pop-ups and tell you what you're looking at and why you should care. If we can layer that in, then everybody can get better and skill up. And the next layer of people come in behind. So I'm excited for that. It was just, we were recently on a call and I said it, guys, make it easy enough. I not want to use the word dumb enough because the folks in the field are way smarter than me. But let's make it easy enough for a guy like me to do it. And now we've empowered businesses across the company or across the country to upscale their teams.
Yeah, and I think, I guess to summarize, it's really about making it not only prescriptive, right, but actionable, that data. So, you're saying like, hey, this is how you analyze it. B, this is what we're prescribing because of what we're seeing, and C, this is what you should go do about it.
Yeah, this is what this means to you. You should be concerned. And based on that concern, you could do these things, but at least talk to your boss, right? This is not good. But it has to be like democratizing that consumption because it's consumable today by the folks that know what they're looking at. But can we democratize that consumption? And now we're there, right? Now we can start playing with that, and that's exciting.
And do you feel like there's an education effort involved in that, or we always say, look, we have to be product led. Like the product has to guide you through doing that. If there's a huge education and training effort, then we didn't design the product right. But I guess how do you guys think about that?
Same way. I frustrate at conferences when talking to people. Oh, we got to educate our customers. Bull. Dustin Devant said it at a Built Worlds event, and I'm dropping some names, and I'm dropping them because they mean something to what you and I and the industry have done. Built Worlds had a roadshow years ago. Dustin was there, and I can remember somebody else saying, you got to educate the customers, and Dustin took the mic after that guy was done and said, it has to be so ridiculously easy to use. And then he passed the mic back. And with that, just as you described it, if the product is done right, the training for the user in the field, the end user, whoever they are, is almost nothing. Our administrators have suffered because we haven't done as well on our administrator side of the tools, and we're getting better, but that's 5% of the users. 95% don't need training.
Yeah, and that's huge, I think, on a lot of fronts. One is just user experience, but the other is scale. It's just the ability to scale out to the marketplace. It has to be that.
Right. Agreed.
It really has to be that. I know we've talked about this before in terms of the industry. I mean, I think now, I've really seen it accelerate in terms of point solutions and apps, and the OEMs are developing things, and even individual dealerships are to bring out to their customers, and then the fleet owners, the construction companies themselves are developing things. It seems to be I don't want to call it a crowded marketplace, but there's a lot of players, right? Yep. Doing a lot of different things and coming at it from lots of different angles. How do you guys think about that in the way you work with everybody in that's either new or existing, within I'll call it the construction tech stack, if you will.
Right. Brian, I'm an ideologue, which means I resonate with other ideologues, whether we agree on the topic or not. And in the construction tech space, I will admit bias to folks that have similar concepts. So if someone's out to make the life of the end user better, however they're doing it, I'm a fan of what they're doing.
Yeah.
If someone's selling software, I'm uninterested. And not to say I'm not a fan of the software. It might be great software. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the motivation, and this is really hard because the capitalism, in general, does not necessarily reward ideologues. And yet, if we're going to solve these construction problems, and people talk about why tech's been slow to be adopted, because we're audience-based selling, and the GC tool, the developer tool isn't the GC tool. The GC tool isn't the trade tool. The trade tool isn't the equipment tool. The equipment tool isn't the safety tool. As you start to pull all these pieces back, how do we overcome that? And there's sort of two very, if you want to generalize, there's two ways maybe. There's the government set standards and everybody oblige. That's one. I kind of don't want that to happen, but it's a way. The other is folks in our space, in the tech space, find places where you resonate and build workflows that are smart together that serve a customer segment. And then you don't worry about, I don't want to say you don't worry about what's in it for you, but you don't kind of worry about what's in it for you.
Yeah.
And it will help. And I believe in that. Now this just gets into my personal thoughts and beliefs, but I believe in that. And I think there are a lot of people that do. And just then finding your connected workflows and bubbling those things up.
Yeah, and I think, as an example, I think the reason our integration works at HRCP is because we both approach it that way, right? Yep. We look at it as, well, we're going to start with the customer workflow first, and we're going to think of this as, kind of enabling them with an operating system.
That's right.
And we're going to put all the pieces together. Activate's going to connect to these pieces, and Riskcast is going to connect to these pieces, and then we're going to connect this workflow like this. And then people are going to be able to track their time, and they're going to track their equipment, and they're going to be able to get paid, and they're going to be able to get their inspections done and their PMs done, and everything is going to work and function on the job site, which as it should. Yeah. And I think, to me anyway, the two things that aren't going to work in this industry is one, the platform play, where it's like we're going to come in and be the platform, and we're going to replace and supplant what you're doing, but then we're going to try and grab all these other things, these workflows. I think that platform play is going to be tough to pull off in this industry. Yep. And I also think the pure tech play is also challenged in this space, which is we've got cool technology, we've got a hammer, where are all the nails?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, that one it became more and more apparent that the industry was what I thought the industry was, which was non-welcoming of that.
Yeah.
To say the least. The industry basically spit all those out pretty quickly. And I'm like, the industry is who I thought the industry was. That's good to see.
Yeah.
The platform one is really intriguing. We have a really awesome partner company. We have a group of customers. There's kind of a partner-ish group where we have some that we work a little bit more tightly with. And one of them made the statement, Kim Ariant from Uptime made the statement, the perception of a platform, which means the way they run theirs, they have tool sets, and she's the vice president of technology or innovation. I forget the title now, but they were looking at how do we combine tool sets for our end users? As a construction company, let's build the right tool set, and then let's make sure our end users have the feeling, the perception of a platform, so that it's seamless is what they were after, versus it's a platform and 80% works for you and the other 20% is going to really be awful.
Right. No, I think that's the right approach. And, we think about it similar. We used maybe different words. When we think about our integration partners and our integration hub, right? We kind of think about it as, hey, look, you select your modules, right? The workflows that you want to work on with Activate, and you pick your integration partners, and that essentially becomes your operating system. It becomes your equipment management operating system. And we don't have to be the whole user interface. Frankly, in some cases, we're happy not even to be the user interface.
Right.
And I think more and more that kind of flexibility is almost becoming a requirement in so many situations. Every time we come across a new prospect or a new customer, they're saying, well, we have this and we've invested millions or tens of millions of dollars in this thing and we're not moving away from it. Yeah. And okay, so then how do we fit in their tech stack? How do we fit in their environment?
Brian, I'm laughing in my head because I'm thinking, you got to be like us sometimes going, yeah, we invested millions and millions of dollars in this thing that's really frustrating us, but we're not moving away from it. So we like what you got, but that $5,000 is way too much for us to spend. And I'm like, can you just give us a little of what you spent over there? I mean, it's painful sometimes, but I was thinking too, I mean, you're on the equipment manager side, and I've had this conversation with other friends in this space, and it's, to me, it's sad. I feel so awful for the folks on the safety side because we used to talk about it 30 years ago when I was out on the job site. The safety group was, the necessary evil on the site, and we all want everybody to go home safe, but the function, the way it was designed and how it ran, was always this feeling of like obligation and compliance.
Yeah.
The equipment management group is like only one half a step above that, right? You're people that like you get to serve. I mean, sadly for them, they're only like a half a step above that, and like, oh my God, the equipment manager wants to know what's on site again.
Yeah, it's a bit of a punching bag, in a lot of cases, but so critical, right? But it is the fire department, it's the emergency, the EMT of the business, and so our challenge really is like how do we make that more proactive? How do we make that more on the level and a partner to production as opposed to a 911 call?
Yeah, you said it earlier, visibility and transparency. If you can bring visibility to stuff that the equipment manager needs it, wants it, gets their thing. And sadly, I know I have the preconception too. Safety guy's in his little closet in the office. Equipment manager's in a slightly bigger closet because it stores Bobcats, but it's still a little closet. And then there's the job site. And so the job site, if you can give them visibility though, while that equipment manager, and I know you do, and I think that visibility across all of us in tech, that visibility, trying, again, back to your point of agnostic of our tech, their tech, whatever, can we make it easy for everybody to see what they want to see, whether we're the host platform or we're just feeding the platform? Yeah. Can we make the experience great for everybody? And then the guy that's your audience is win-win, right? He's getting the win, and he doesn't have to beat on the field to turn in a report.
Yeah, and I think the nirvana, I guess, or the ultimate panacea is can you connect all those things, right? Can you connect all those functions where they connect, right? So you have this one synchronous organization that's moving together in a way that makes sense. Safety, production, equipment management, the back office support, the executive level. How do you get them all in sync? And I think it's by connecting, with things like equipment management with time carding and production, right? And laborers and equipment operators, and making those connections happen. And I think that's just so kind of so critical.
I agree.
And so as you think about the forward looking for not just for you guys but for the industry in general, I guess what are some of those next big challenges that you see, next big problems that you see solving, or the industry needs to solve, as we move forward, and as tech gets more advanced, and maybe there are things like AI, and we talk about drones and all sorts of great stuff.
Yeah, I can go like 20 different directions here. I think there's a couple that are low hanging fruit next things, and I think hard to put my finger on which one I would start with. I would say for the construction industry in general, people have started, a couple years ago, interoperability was the word everybody used, right? It needs to be interoperable. But what you're describing and what I'm thinking, when we talk about the integration hub is it's a set of pre-built workflows. It's not interoperable. Interoperable is great, but still somebody has to get involved, right? Connected workflows that already work. And then they have to be like, I don't care if yours leads and mine serves, or mine leads and yours serves. If we get caught up in that, the industry still loses. And I think there is a large layer of construction tech that has this mindset because coming from space or being around space long enough, I don't know how you don't have a passion and compassion for the people on site. And I think that drives that layer of connected tech in such a way that I think over the next 5 years, that layer of tech is going to continue to rise up and serving the way it serves, whatever that means, right? And it may not be flashy in any one spot, but it's going to be highly valuable to the industry. Now, once all the data starts coming in, like what cool things is the industry going to do? I mean, I've said it selfishly in our tool, like we should be as building the model while we're filling out our time cards. I believe in that, right? I have no doubt that we can as build a model while we're filling out our time cards. If on the model side, there's a tool that stretches into the field, right? And now there's 4 or 5 of them that are doing it. And it's now a matter of time of when, right? Not a matter of if. And suddenly when I fill out my time card and say some of the things I did, it fills in one of these prefab type model tools that then feeds the model itself. And suddenly I've got an as-built model going on. Yeah. That's pretty cool stuff. I know there's contractors today that use those tools that share openly with their owners and their GCs. They're like, well, it got done. They're using their tool to update their progress, and they're sharing that, like, play one-on-one. Here you go. Here we are. Like, this is where we are. It used to be you had to pull that out of your trade contractors. The ones that are performing well and have the tools to show it, and they can show it off, God love them. They're moving the needle. And I think that is going to let us as-built some model stuff, which is cool. And then the model will start to have the value it always should, which will be into like the 4 or 5, whatever D level of the model you want to have. To me, that's exciting stuff. And it carries along equipment. You're talking fully loaded models, people, equipment, cost, all of it. Those things are going to be really, really fun to watch. I'm not sure AI, I don't know where AI comes into that. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it helps connect some things. But ultimately, I don't think AI is involved in most of that. That's just cool tech.
I'm kind of with you on that. It's this convergence of all these different areas that people are coming in and solving problems with. And so when I think about it relative to Activate, I think you hit on a key point. It's like we can touch, as Riskcast, we touch this area and this area and this area, and we start to connect these workflows, right? And I think about it as Activate, with these other companies that are really advancing in some interesting spaces that we connect to. So, for example, the parts catalog folks or the parts buying folks, the gear flows.
I was going to say, Luke at Gear Flow, man, you gotta love that guy.
So Luke's gonna be on the podcast next week. So
fantastic.
Little sneak preview, but. But to be able to connect to that parts buying have Activate as an equipment management solution, connect to that, multi-brand agnostic parts buying catalog. And then, Alex Kraft over at Heave, who I had on last week, and, the Uber for technicians and, putting his arms around all the independent techs. And again, when an operator reports an equipment issue on the job site, being able to punch out of Activate, if they're using Activate to manage their equipment, into finding a technician if they can't get a dealer tech. I just think that, to your point, all of these things are going to start to come together,
right?
And it's not going to be the single quote unquote platform play that wins.
Right.
It's going to be how all of these things get assembled
Yeah,
and put together.
it is. I agree. I love that. I think, I remember my way back when, the crane goes down, and, a drill rig goes down, and, somebody's screaming at me, and it's $90,000, getting burned right there because there's a crew that goes with that. There's work that's not getting done. That piece of equipment's going down. If that piece of equipment went down and somebody got an alert, they instantly could move that crew and do something different. It wouldn't save all that money, but it would save a lot of it. Instead, there's time involved in making the call, and there's time involved in finding out. And all these pieces, then suddenly we burned half a day, $45,000 or whatever it is, or I can't remember if it was 90 grand an hour, 90 grand a day. God bless folks listening to this. You're going to call me crazy, but it was a long time ago. But that kind of thing is super valuable. I think there's a place for AI, there's a place for AR, VR, and those tools will find homes, but it's back to your hammer looking for nails. I think right now, I think there's a lot of assisting by those tools, but true workflows, their hammer's looking for nails at the moment, and we need that. I don't think we don't need it, but,
for sure.
But then it's an industry that gets jaded fast.
Right.
So too much of that, play with it. Don't promise. Play with it. Because if you promise and it doesn't work, then the next thing behind you gets burned by your callousness.
Well, and I would argue that, telematics came out that way. Many months ago.
How many? I was still working in rental back then. Yes. Telematics came out when I was in rentals.
And people, the silver bullet, this is gonna solve, world hunger, and you're gonna have all this telematics data. You're gonna be able to do all this stuff with it. And I can't count the number of countless, equipment managers who said, well, now I have to look at 6 different OEM dashboards and my third-party dashboard, and now I'm looking at all this data and I don't even know what it means, and I'm getting all this, stream of fault codes, thrown at me, and it's just overwhelming. And again, kind of data everywhere and not a drop to drink, right? And so
actionable data. I think you said that earlier, right? One of our customers repeats things like contextualized data, actionable data. I don't need all my data.
Yeah.
I need the data I'd like, and then I need it contextualized so it's actionable.
Yeah.
Just the data field doesn't help me. I need to know the things around it, and that might not be all in my tool. Again, combining workflows.
Yeah, and you gotta put the data in the workflow, right?
Yep.
Get it in the hands, the cliche, right? But you get it in the hands of the right person at the right time, and you prescribe what you got to go do with it now, or what it means to you, 100%. Well, I know we're coming up on time here, and I know, you're a busy entrepreneur. I know the life.
No, this is why we booked the call at the end of the day on a Friday.
Right, at the end of the day.
I do actually have another call behind this, but that's only because I'm taking advantage of time zones.
Right.
Which is the entrepreneurial game, right?
But I'll tell you, this has been such a fantastic conversation, and the hour unfortunately flew by for us. But would love to have you back on, and as you guys move the ball forward, I think we're super aligned in how we think about the industry. It's just it's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you, because I know we're kind of thinking about things in a similar fashion. So and excited to solve the industry's challenges. I mean, I like you view it that way. It's that that's the exciting part. That's what wakes you up every day. Is to solve these puzzles. And it feels like you guys are in the same space.
I agree. Only one deal I'll make you. On the next one, we talk about all the dumb, funny things that happen during founders' journeys. Our tools are going to work. We can. It's rough. Riggs did such a great thing when they pulled together Founders Forum. It was so fun to sit with other founders and like, oh my God, you too? You're like, yeah, you too? Oh, crap, all of us? Why doesn't anybody tell everybody, right? We're all in the same thing. And man, it's just a weird journey.
I'll tell you, it's every day there could be a bloopers highlight reel. It's just, and the crazy stuff that happens, and the dumb things I do, it's just, but again, it's, we do it because it's exciting. We do it because, we're all passionate about this stuff, but yeah, 100%. We could do that, and we can do it over a beer, and
Sure.
that would be. I think that would be a great next podcast.
Deal.
Awesome. Well, thank you
Got
so
it.
much, Alec, and have a great weekend. And
Appreciate you too.
we'll talk soon.
You got it.